This map shows Worthington Force's intended route with the dashed line, as opposed to the route it actually took with the solid line that ends up outside Lestries-la-Campagne on the right side of the map. Down this hill is where they came from. The Worthington Force came up this line. So just real quick, on the ground, why it's so interesting to be here. Today is much warmer than anticipated, so you can see that dust coming off the road. Now imagine a whole armored column coming down that road. That was from 2 transport trucks, I think. I briefly saw them. Dust is still there, so you can only imagine the confusion, right? Coming along a road, oh, there's the crest of something. This has got to be where we were, because they think they're in the right spot. So there's going to be comments inevitably that they were dumb and they should have known better, blah, blah, blah. But here's an example from the ground of where they're coming from, of what the dust can look like when this is only in April. And it's about 20-something degrees outside, so something to think about. So I am on Hill 140, walking up to the Worthington Force Memorial. Of course, they thought they were on Hill 195, which they were not, and was taken by the Argylls later on in a rather daring attack. So this is the memorial that sits off just the main road. The actual fighting took place over there. So you can see there's several memorials here. Ceremonies have been held here. So it's a sacred area to those who fell August 9th, 1944. 28th Canadian Armoured Regiment, 4th Canadian Division, British Columbia Regiment, Algonquin Regiment of Ontario. So this explains what happened in broad strokes, in French and English, and then the memorial to those who died in the fighting. We're going to try and see how close we can get to the actual site itself. In one of the true rarities of World War II, we have aerial photos that were taken as the battle was going on. These photos will be used alongside footage I took of the actual battlefield itself to help give a better understanding of what was happening that day in August 1944. I want to say thanks to Mike Bechthold for bringing my attention to these photos and pointing me in the direction to go find them for the video. From this angle, we are looking in a northern direction. This clump of trees, a very small forest, marked the southern edge of Worthington Force's defensive position. At the time, it wasn't a clump of trees, it was more rows of hedges. That has changed since the battle itself. To help get your bearings, the Worthington Force Memorial is on the other side of these trees, further down in the field, closer to the main road. Move further down the path. From here, you can see the spot where Worthington Force was, panning across the field here to 30-acre wood, the German position. This is the direction the German attacks on Worthington Force came from. The War Diary of the British Columbia Regiment mentioned this German attack. It states, at 1800 hours, a warning came from our forward elements that a strong counterattack was being launched from the southeast sector. 4 tanks remained that could still be fought and immediately engaged the German infantry advancing in waves and inflicted heavy casualties on them. This attack coincided with very heavy mortar concentrations, which accounted for a large proportion of our infantry around the perimeter, and a direct hit set fire to one of the tanks. The attacking force of infantry, judged to be 2 companies in strength, suffered heavy casualties and was pinned down. Lieutenant Colonel Worthington at this time returned with some wounded infantrymen and gave them first aid in a dugout under a tank. In a few moments, the counterattack was renewed, led by a mixed force of Tiger and Panther tanks. As the tank Lieutenant Colonel Worthington was in an extremely vulnerable position and had been hit, he ordered it forward to a covered position. He evacuated the wounded to the slight shelter of a hedgerow and was killed by the burst of a mortar shell. So also at Bretteville, you have the members of Worthington Force who fell, including their commander, Donald Worthington, who of course died on August 9th, 1944. So next to him, unfortunately, is his brother, John Worthington, Major John Worthington, also of the BCR. who dies on August 18th, 1944. So just after Tractable. So I've continued on further down the path. There again is the position of Worthington Force. Way out there you can see a small group of trees. That's the memorial. Way up there. Had to come quite a bit to get a good angle on it, but that's the memorial spot right there. So again, just getting close to the other side of the slope of 30 Acre Wood. Looking back, and that's the forest end of the field. The rest has been taken out. It was hedges, but not anymore. It's just been integrated all into the farmland. But this little patch is still there. So again, that clump of trees up ahead is the one end of where they set up here on 140. And if you look this way, you can see they're on a reverse slope. Might be hard to pick out, but they definitely are, because the ground goes down this way, down towards the road. It's pretty clear on the ground. But it's an actually pretty good position to be in, especially when you think you're in the right spot and you've just come on off the road, which again is that clump of trees way over there where the memorial is. That is the major road that runs through here and was there at the time, and that's the one they followed in the dark. And then when daylight came, that's when things started to go poorly. So as I was walking back at this point, the wind picked up, so the audio needs to be replaced. So as I was walking along this direction, looking at, again, the defensive position that Worthington Force had, two thoughts came to my mind. The first is that when studying this battle initially and having Mike Bechthold on the channel for a live stream about the Force, he brought up an excellent point that the Force had broken through the German defensive line. The Germans were still setting up a new one. Hadn't been completed yet, but they were able to break through. Yes, of course, the Force is eventually destroyed, but they were able to get through the line without the Germans even knowing it. So also on the point of the Force's destruction, these two units, the British Columbia Regiment and the Algonquin Regiment, are able to take on reinforcements and come back into the order of battle for the 1st Canadian Army. So that speaks to the Canadian ability to keep reinforcements in Normandy and keep them up to the front line. In comparison, the Germans weren't able to do that. If a unit got well below fighting strength, it was folded into another or just ceased to exist. That didn't happen with any Canadian units in Normandy at all. Despite taking high casualties at many points in the battle, the Canadians were able to get those units re-equipped and get them back into battle. I do highly suggest checking out that live stream I had with Mike Bechthold on Worthington Force. It's linked down below. Mike covers the course of the fighting, how they came to be where they were, and he goes over his thoughts on how things might have turned out differently if a few factors had changed. Looks like several dug pits in here in the forest part. Not sure if they're from the battle or not, but still interesting to see. Another one here with a tree around in it. Okay, so now that I've gone down up this path and to the left and gone around the position, so that's at one end of the position, the other one's much further up. Photos of the time show it much better. You can still sort of see the outline from satellite photos, but photos of the time show it much better. So you're walking along here, you can get a good impression of it, especially if there's no crops. Right now the canola is pretty high, but it's also up on a slope, so it was a bit of a slope position to have some space to see out on the reverse slope on the other side, because it goes up as well, further up, and that wood's way over there. It's connected here, connected to these woods on the right. Straight ahead is up even higher. So if they're coming over that, that's a good position to be in because it's a reverse slope on that side. So at one point during the live stream on Worthington Force, Mike Bechthold talks about a clump of trees that some tanks were dispatched to deal with. That's a piece of it left there, right? Because it wasn't attached. But this is the length of where the rest of the wood ran. And that again is 30-acre wood on that side. So I can certainly understand why they thought this was the point they were supposed to be on. They did a zigzag when they weren't supposed to. However, this does look like a good spot to be in. It is certainly high ground. You can see up there, that's the trusty old rental car up there. And then back this way is Con in the distance. So this certainly is a very good piece of high ground to be on. However, it wasn't where they were supposed to be. So the support for the artillery didn't go to the right place, obviously. They tried to get communications, it just didn't quite work out. I've talked to Mike Bechthold about this in depth in a live stream. I'll link that down below to check out. But so you can see this is looking towards Con there, but this is where they came across. Actually, they kind of came more from in that direction. They weren't supposed to, but that's where they came from. So this is where they were. I mean, they didn't know what the positions look like. It looks different than 195, but that's irrelevant. Crossed a major road, and they thought this was it, and it would make perfect sense. However, they were unsupported. So, and just a word of kind of advice and information. So this memorial is not the easiest to get to. I'm kind of parked up over there on a dip and a little bit in the road. France isn't very well known for, well, in my opinion, the shoulders on the road. There are none. It's just a small little area, nowhere to really park right here, unfortunately. So kind of park off to the side, get dropped off or something. But then again, it's not the easiest to get to, and the road is literally right there, and people do not slow down. Even if there's people or bikes, they don't seem to care. So it's a little more difficult to get across. And this chain kind of blocks your way if you have accessibility issues. That's something to keep in mind as well. It's a nice spot. I just wish it was a little more accessible, but it doesn't look like there's much that can be done in that regard.